On this episode of My So-Called Podcast, we are going back to the week of March 2nd, 1990.
Yeah, that's when the sophomore release from Sinead O'Connor, I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got, came out. It would be successful. And John McTiernan's The Hunt for Red October was released in a massive amount of theaters, I'm imagining.
Like the past. The movie never changes. It can't change, but every time you see it, it seems different because you were different. You see different things.
Welcome to My So-Called Podcast. I am Gary Linton.
And it's me, Eric Spiegel.
Hey, it's Eric Spiegel.
It's me.
Eric, this is a podcast where we go back to the week in the 90s. We talk about an album and a movie that were released the same week. This week we're going back to March 2nd, 1990. That was the week that The Hunt for Red October was released. And there's some discrepancy on when Sinead O'Connor's released her second album, I Do Not Want What I Don't Have.
Yeah, but this is not a podcast about discrepancies, so just steamroll right over that, Gary.
Okay. It's lost to the ages though, because it was kind of like all over the place when this album came out. Nobody knows.
Oh, that's actually kind of interesting. It's like at some sort of liminal space between the internet's birth and, everything being kept on paper or something.
Yeah, I don't know. But so we talk about that.
Am I saying that right? Liminal?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to introduce a guest that we have on the podcast today. He's been on it before. Welcome back, Gregory Linton.
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on it. Going back to 1990, you were a senior. This would have been your senior year of high school, Greg.
See, I tend to think of 1990 as my freshman year of college.
Yeah, but this is March 1990.
You're absolutely right. March, I would have still been in high school. You got me there.
Yeah.
Well, don't blame us, because we would be in 6th grade still.
Oh, would we be? Yes. Yeah, 6th grade. So
6th grade. So I was still in elementary school when this all happened, which means there was no way in hell I was going to the movie theaters. I'll tell you that right now.
No. Well, you never went to the movie theaters at all in the 6th grade?
I mean...
When you were a kid?
I mean, the chances of going to a movie or going out to dinner were pretty low. I mean, it was a very, very unusual pleasure. Actually, we used to go out to the movies reliably on Easter.
Oh, okay.
Which was actually a cool family tradition, because sometimes there wasn't like a good kid movie out. And once we got to be in our teens, it was like, do you guys want to see Grand Canyon or The Paper or whatever? And we'd be like, sure. Or JFK.
Nice.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, Eric, I don't think when I was a kid I went to the movies a lot either.
No.
I mean, Gary got to go to the movies a lot because I wanted to go
to the movies. Greg would take me to the movies.
Yeah. That is I mean, so, Greg, it's important to take a moment before we launch into Sinead and McTeers, because, you're sort of the godfather of My So-Called Podcast in many ways, because you're a specter, on the show so many times, because to have a big brother that's into movies and into music is, kind of a unique blessing, of us. It's true of anybody, I think, that has somebody that's like that much older. It's like they turn them on to stuff that they wouldn't have found in any other way. You know what I mean? So anyway, you come up that way, and I think I've told you this before in like maybe real life, but on the podcast, I think you should get your due as the official godfather of My So-Called Podcast.
I'll take that. Yeah, I think it was just important for me that Gary enjoyed the music that I was listening to, and then also he was a body to go with me to movies.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, whatever the motivation is, I mean, you could even be kind of an asshole, I think, and your little brother might sneak into your record collection and be exposed to something they might otherwise not. You don't have to have a great friendship, but like I think you guys did pretty much grow into enjoying kind of similar things together the older you both got, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember a time where we didn't enjoy being around each other, but yeah, no, it was important to me. I shared that music willingly. It was, I was probably the opposite of what you were saying. I was probably kind of dickish in the way that I forced my music on.
Well, yeah, no comment.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, that's lost to the sands of time. And there's no way for us to know.
That's
really,
right.
Any of those things, because mostly the good memories are what sustain us through the years, right?
There you go. That's true.
I mean, it sounds like a friendship that was, beyond normal brotherhood. It was nice. You both enjoyed each other and enjoyed the same kind of stuff, which, is awesome,
yep.
Obviously. I had a, big sister that was into about, I would say, 50-50 music that I liked.
Yeah, she introduced you to Madonna. We had Beth and we talked about Madonna.
Introduced me to stuff, movies and music and ideas and stuff that was just slightly beyond, it was funny. I mean, it makes me think of like the time that she watched Revenge of the Nerds with the babysitter, and I was so young that I played Space Quest instead because I was like, I don't care about that crap.
It's probably the right call. Space Quest over Revenge of the Nerds.
I mean, it still is the right call.
That's right.
I mean, these so many years later, I was probably avoiding Revenge of the Nerds not because I didn't care about what adults did in the nude, but because I could tell that they were not portraying consent in an appropriate way.
That's right.
For a good majority of the film.
Yeah.
Gross movie. Don't watch it, actually.
Well, yeah, that's what we were doing in 1990.
How fun is that?
We were watching Revenge of the Nerds. What year did Revenge of the Nerds come out?
That's right.
84.
Yeah, it was pretty early.
I don't know. We were in the 6th grade.
Don't remember the first time you saw it?
I don't remember. In my memory, I feel like I saw like a lot of movies that I like in an inappropriate age kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's awesome. I think that's just the way I see it through the lens. I don't know that that's necessarily true, but like a movie like Revenge of the Nerds would have just been on HBO. So I've
we
seen
also
it multiple times.
The other thing is, we also had not only channel 11 or channel 30 play stuff, but TBS and WGN would also play edited movies, and so we might have caught that at one time too, where it's just like, oh yeah, it was an edited version of it. And
I gotcha. Yeah, that's one way.
Yes, Queen. Yeah, I'm here from not having Cablesville to tell you everything I knew was edited. I had Ghostbusters, so I can tell you the differences between a PG rated movie like Ghostbusters from television to VHS, because when I finally got around to actually watching a DVD of it or something later, because I just had watched it off TV so many times because that was what I had taped, that I was like shocked by some of the language in it and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I can tell you an awful lot. Also, RoboCop off of TV is, I think, more effective as a thriller because it cuts away from some of what ends up being laugh gore because it's so extreme. So it's like when they cut it down to show RoboCop on TV, it becomes like a much more disturbing movie in a lot of ways because it's not so overtly grotesque, like where it's tipping its hand to show how ridiculous it is in a way. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
It like almost makes it a more serious movie, which is not, I mean, I don't think that's the intent, but like Hitchcock, right, he would cut away from violence and it would be more disturbing, right? right? So like they just have to cut away right at the gore, and so then it ends up being kind of like a pretty shocking scene. I don't know. That's the way I experienced it, except for with very awkward pauses over whenever people would cuss, or like very awkward dubs as well. I'm very familiar with, and also the commercials I had to fast forward through during certain portions of RoboCop and Ghostbusters, for example.
Right. Well, there you go. Yeah.
I mean, that is actually what I was doing when I was 12, by the way.
In 1990,
watching
right.
Ghostbusters, watching RoboCop, watching Animaniacs, I would say, probably reading The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I don't know. I think I read Neuromancer for the first time in the 6th grade, and I didn't quite understand it. But my dad really liked William Gibson, so I was like trying. Later I read it. It's good.
Okay.
I mean, story checks out. He invented the word cyberspace in it, so it's a thing.
All right. You heard it here, folks. All right.
Jacking into the web or whatever, or to the net, that's from that originally. It's also 1984, by the way. What is this podcast about, Gary?
I have no idea what this podcast is about anymore.
I know. It's
I heard a rumor that it was about the 90s, talking about a movie in the 90s and talking about
we talk about an album that was released in the 90s?
Album in the 90s,
and then in the second half we talk about a movie.
Yep.
But before we do that, we have to play a game, actually, Gregory. And you haven't been here for a while, but we do have a new game.
It is a new game.
And it's not trivia anymore. So the points are irrelevant. But it does have a bitchin' theme song that Gary's worried about, but I love. Can you hear it?
I can hear it.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I can't hear the bitchingness. The bitchingness. I'm saying that wrong, but you know what I mean. That's the song.
A bitchin' Camaro.
Early 90s Jerry Goldsmith sci-fi thriller action music video.
It's kind of cutting you out, Eric, so we can't really hear you. It's the theme to Total Recall, Greg.
Yeah, so that's the theme to Total Recall. Thanks, my man Jerry Goldsmith. Speaking of Paul Verhoeven, Ultraviolence, baby.
Yeah, nobody was
Total
there.
Recall, also 1990. Now we're in the present tense. Total Recall came out, but that's the name of this game, Gregory. This is the part. I'm sorry, your thing says Gregory. So
yeah.
Is that okay? I feel
most people just call me Greg.
I know.
You've been my friend for a number of years, and you've just called me Greg. So you can stick with that.
I know, but you're captioned as Gregory.
Well, that is my God-given name.
I don't think God gave it to you. I think I know who gave it to you.
That's the name my parents gave me, yes.
No, I think it's fine if you want to say it's from God. I think I will allow it.
Okay.
I know somebody who thinks they're God.
It's me.
It's my mom.
Allowed it.
It's our
I don't
mom.
know how else I could do that. Anyway, sorry, Greg.
I will answer to either.
Yeah. Well, actually, I had a whole circle in my head of anxiety where I was like, should I have been calling him Gregory for the past 12 years or whatever?
I don't know why I typed it in that way. I just did.
But if you want me to call you whatever, I will.
No,
you
could call me whatever, or you could call me Greg.
Okay.
He's not like Julia Roberts here. So.
So anyway, the way it works is we just have a category. I'm starting to learn that the easier the category, the better, actually, because it's not a game of can you think of one. It's a game of recall, and so I think the easier the category, the better the game will be. The only rule is don't write anything down while we're playing, because that's cheating. It's not a game about writing things down. It's a game about remembering. But if you want to cheat, it's a game about you and yourself and what that means about what kind of person you are, I guess. And that's a game you're playing all by yourself in the dark.
This sounds pretty introspective.
Yeah, we've never gone this deep before. I don't know what's happening here.
I don't know.
There's also no points. And no point. So what the category is, thanks Jerry Goldsmith, is Sean Connery movies. It's easy, baby.
Okay.
So the way it works is I'll say one, you'll say one, Greg, and then Gary. What's your middle name, Gary?
It's the same as Greg's, Anthony.
Oh,
both
Gary.
Anthony, both Gary. Named after popes.
Gary Tony. You can't really really blend Gary Anthony Litton. It's sort of like very formal.
Yeah, okay. And for you to say that it doesn't blend, it's just, it's my father's name.
It blends to us because we've heard it for 40-something years.
You've heard it for 50 years because it was Dad's name.
I've heard it for 50-something years. That's true.
Yeah, it sounds like you're like some sort of a lord or something. In any case, we'll go around the circle. It'll be Gregory, Anthony, and Timothy in that order, and we'll go.
But your middle name's Eric. You can't do that. And then Greg's middle name is Anthony also.
So you think
it'd be Anthony? Hi, I'm Anthony. This is my brother Anthony.
That's right.
There are no rules here. You think there are rules here?
No, you're right. I'm sorry for thinking there were rules.
Okay, so Gregory, then Anthony, then Timothy. You think of actually, Tim will start, and then we'll do Gregory and Anthony. It'll be Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Okay.
Very end.
So now,
and then do I just say the Untouchables?
No, you got to remember Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. So you got to say Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, the Untouchables.
Oh, okay. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, the Untouchables.
Now I'll do Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, the Untouchable, Doctor No.
Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I'm just going to say Robin Hood from now on. Can we all agree to that? Robin Hood.
Yes.
Robin Hood, the Untouchables, Dr. No. Why is this already hard? Medicine Man.
Okay.
Robin Hood, Untouchables, Dr. No, Medicine Man, From Russia with Love.
Yep, see? So now we're going to do Robin Hood, the Untouchables, Dr. No, Medicine Man, From Russia with Love. I'm going to do Entrapment.
I had that one loaded.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do this now, actually. What did we start with? Shoot. It
was yours.
Robin Hood.
Yeah.
I know. It's mine. Robin Hood, and then it was Untouchables, and then it was Dr. No, and then it was Medicine Man, and then it was From Russia with Love, and then it was what you said. Oh, Entrapment.
That's right.
And that's the last one I'm going to get, because I'm going to go out with style here. I got to think of something. Oh, Finding Forrester.
Who's the
classic,
Who's
the classic
the man
Sean
dog
Connery
now?
Performance.
Yep.
Who's the man now, dog?
That's
right.
Exactly.
Which he could have said in this movie easily, by the way. I don't want to jump the gun on the Hunt for Red October, but just imagine who's the man now, dog? I mean, he could, right? Because he's already gone from Russian to Scottish.
That's right. Yep.
You're
making the game harder, Eric, by talking all that stuff.
I know. Yeah. He's icing the next.
Exactly.
Next
That's right.
I'm so sorry. Finding Forrester just set me off. I'm so sorry. Somebody else. Okay. Because of that, Gregory, you could get a little assist from your brother if he wants to give it to you. Go for it.
Okay, I'm gonna try. You started off with. Oh shit. You started off with Robin Hood. I did the Untouchables. You did Dr. No. You came back with Medicine Man. I came back with Russia Love. You did Entrapment. You did Medicine Man just now.
Nope.
Right?
Nope.
Oh, no. You did Finding Forrester.
That's right.
And then I will do Never Say Never Again.
Oh, oof. It's a good one. I think that's what I was going to do, too. Okay, so we got Robin Hood, we got the Untouchables, Dr. No, Medicine Man, From Russia with Love, Entrapment, Finding Forrester, Never Say Never Again, and what's that one called? Zoltar?
Close. Flip it around.
Tarzol?
Oh, you're close. It's Zardoz.
Zardoz. Yeah. I don't know. Does that one count? I didn't get it. So
I don't know. We could just stop there.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Who cares?
Yeah, I like it.
Okay, I think that's enough.
I don't even know that one. What is that one?
That's
well, do yourself a favor, listeners and Greg. Just Google Sean Connery Zardoz and just then click on the images filter of Google and just bask in the glory of the costume designers having a field day, and Connery just going along with it. You know, it's Zardoz, and I mean,
I was doing Zoltar. That's the machine that makes a wish in big.
I mean, the thing is like in the '60s, like people are like the '60s were far out, man. But it's like they were pretty far out. Like, look at his ponytail. Look at these boots. I mean,
that's
it's
cray-cray.
Incredible. Not that it makes me want to watch it, which I never have. It's actually done the opposite. I'm not sure I want to watch Sean Connery in this.
Don't you want to see why he's in that outfit?
What?
Don't you see what makes him put that on?
I don't know. What's it about?
I don't know either. I haven't seen it.
Okay. Well, it's from 1974, which is 10 years before Revenge of the Nerds came out and Space Quest, I think. So,
all right. Well, that was Total Recall, and that's where we recalled a bunch of Sean Connery films. So.
Yep.
I didn't even get to Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, let's have a round here where everybody can say the ones they were saving that they really wanted to say. That's a really good one.
Yep, Darby O'Gill is a really good one.
Really, I'm sure, really kind of a really, really close to doing television at that point, probably.
Well, it was Disney.
I know, but then Never Say Never Again, and it was like what happened between then and The Untouchables. I think that was a real comeback, right?
The Untouchables was, yeah.
So that's what I'm talking about, is like 85, 86.
Darby
87.
O'Gill was earlier, even before he was James Bond.
That's what I thought. I thought Darby O'Gill was like one of his first, but I could be wrong.
No.
Wow.
No, it was early.
My understanding of Darby O'Gill and the Little People is just totally expanded and exploded tonight.
Yep.
Man, you got to kill your heroes or whatever they say in episode 8. What is it?
What are you talking about?
You know what I'm talking about. You got to kill your mentors or kill the past, or what do they say?
Who is they? What are you talking about?
Episode 8, The Last Jedi. What's his name? Kylo Ren. Whatever he kills, the one guy.
I don't remember.
You gotta kill the past, or
yeah, you gotta kill Luke Skywalker. I think that's the saying.
I don't know. You really don't know what I'm talking about.
But just so you know, Darby O'Gill is from '59.
Oh shoot, man. Okay, so maybe that was the hot. I mean, maybe that was the thing that broke his whole career, and I'm just totally ignorant of Sean Connery's career at this point.
I think you've proven that. Yes.
I really don't know much about James Bond movies before, let's say,
Casino Royale.
A View to a Kill.
Oh, okay.
So I could probably explain everything that happened in the Bond universe post Duran Duran. But before that, I don't know any of that stuff. It's interesting, actually. Because I'm sure I would probably enjoy it in some ways, but it's just never happened.
Well,
my dad didn't watch football either, so it's like I don't really do that either.
Gotcha. Well, all right. We're going to go ahead and move on talking about...
you guys can say... you seem to be more familiar with the earlier ones, right?
Well, we watched...
Earlier, Sean O'Connor, Darby O'Gill was on the house a lot. And I think I've seen every Bond film a dozen times. So,
yeah, we had them all on... we had a bunch of them on cassette tape. VHS tape.
VHS, yeah.
We listened to them.
I'm really interested in this. So at what age were you watching them dozens of times?
So I think For Your Eyes Only was kind of like my into it. So that was on HBO, and it was on HBO frequently. So I watched that a bunch of times. And then just, because you had access to cable, the other movies ran. But there was a point in life where I was like, I just got to watch all the damn Bond films. So, yeah. But, that's probably a misnomer. I probably haven't watched most of the Sean Connery films a dozen times, just probably a few times each, to be honest with you. But people always say, who's your favorite Bond? And mine's Roger Moore, but that's because that's who I came in. That's who
Bond was
James
when
Bond
you
was
yeah.
For me, when
same,
I came in,
right? I came in. Grace Jones and Christopher Walken were the bad guy, and Roger Moore was James Bond, and he was 67, and you just dealt with it.
I don't know. I remember seeing Never Say Never Again. I think that got some play. So that was kind of confusing.
That was on ABC sometimes, but I never recorded it. I missed it or whatever.
Yeah, I remember being confused by that a little bit, though. Like, wait, what's going on with this Bond here? So,
I know. It's like the Into the Spider-Verse happening at the same time as the Marvel, I guess.
Yeah.
You just have to deal with the different Bondiverses.
That's right. But there's only one.
Is Roger Moore your favorite or just the one you most associate with it, Greg?
I think he kind of still remains my favorite. I mean, yeah. I wouldn't. I've never thought about ranking them, but if I did it off the top of my head, I would probably put Roger Moore at the top. But then I would put Daniel Craig right as number 2, probably, because
Timothy Dalton.
Yeah, and then I mean, those aren't the best films, obviously.
Right.
The Timothy Dalton ones aren't that great. I mean, but the Pierce Brosnan one, I mean, GoldenEye is probably my favorite Bond film. But again, that's not what this podcast is.
That's right.
Well, it's also an incredible Nintendo 64 game.
GoldenEye is, yeah.
Yeah, but this is sort of what this podcast is. And by the way, the segue into this is Sean Connery, but we're going to do the top 10 songs in a second. But the thing is like, that's actually what I feel like I need is like, what's the Sean Connery one that's going to make me want to watch more Sean Connery ones? Because I have tried a couple of times.
The Spy Who Loved Me. Did you watch The Spy Who Loved Me? That's a really good one.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll watch that one. You know what? At random, I just chose one. I didn't even look at the Rotten Tomatoes or whatever, and I watched Diamonds Are Forever, and that is so bad. It is atrocious. So I guess maybe I've been kind of allergic.
But The Spy Who Loved Me, is that
Roger Moore?
That's Roger Moore.
Oh, okay.
That's Roger Moore.
But that's the one that first came to both of your minds, so I'll still watch it.
And
I've
then
never watched that one.
You Only Live Twice.
George Lazenby.
On Her Majesty's Secret Service is George Lazenby.
That's the George Lazenby? Okay.
Yeah. Maybe
okay, there you go.
You Only Live Twice is maybe a good Sean Connery one also.
See, I mixed that up with Never Say Never Again, because it's like twice, like never again.
I mean, I think The Man with the Golden Gun is like a Sean. I mean, that one's got all the. I mean,
Goldfinger.
But I mixed that up with Goldfinger.
Yeah, that's true. I might be doing that too.
But I feel
that's
like
the one that has.
Doesn't that have Pussy Galore in it?
Yeah, Goldfinger has Pussy Galore.
So I feel like I maybe want to watch it before it goes that over the top. I'm feeling.
Well, that's earlier though. That's one of the first ones. Dr. No's the very first one. Goldfinger's like the second or third one.
I mean, I feel like if they reboot this, because they're going to have to with Craig, they got to do something new. I feel like they could go like full on like swinging 60s.
Well, yeah, that would be one way to go.
I mean, it would be pretty cool if it was like period specific 1960s, but like deadly serious, like just as serious as Daniel Craig, but like in the early to like later 60s. So then you get to see all this like spy shit from a different era again, and like velvet collared shirts, etc.
And the misogyny.
Ooh, yeah. Maybe James Bond has to be a woman or something.
There you go.
I don't want to work this out. I don't think the white men can figure that one out.
No.
Right, actually. I mean, sometimes it's a job for white men, but I think we should step aside on this James Bond thing and see what happens.
All right, sounds good. So we're going to get talking about Sinead O'Connor's I Do Not Want What I Don't Have.
She would have liked that last one I made.
I think so. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you the songs that were on the charts the same week that, this is the same week that From Russia, no, The Hunt for Red October came out, which, what's the name? Oh, I'm blanking on the name of the song. Nothing Compares to You. That was a single.
To you.
Yeah, that came out in 89, so that singles bit was around forever before this album came out. So
but that's how they used to do it sometimes, right? Was there'd be a single, and there'd be another single, and then that would build interest, and then you'd have an LP. I feel like that's like a major label thing, trying to get interest in a new artist. Does that ring any bells for anybody?
Well, yeah.
I think that's how they still do it to this very day.
Some people
introduce singles before they introduce the album. In fact, today they introduce singles, and there's no album to be seen.
That's true.
Yeah, album? What does that mean?
Yeah, and I was going to say, too, but I was going to save it for the discussion, that, like, when you guys said, let's do Sinead O'Connor, and you said it was in 1990, I was like, I think of this as an 80s I feel like it's an 80s thing. But
well, the song is, yeah, you're right. So, and some people say that the 1990 was the end of the 80s. Yeah, but those people are wrong. It's the beginning of the 90s. So,
I mean, I do think that it is kind of called, though, a little bit more attention to right or wrong. I'm not being judgy or old-timey or anything,
that
but
doesn't sound like you.
Music was more slow release thing at this point, right? And like the timing of the Grammys has always felt extremely tardy. I think we can all agree. By the time the Grammys happen or giving out Record of the Year or whatever, it's like the person who wrote it is dead. No one listens to it anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
Like they're pariahs.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've moved to Europe to escape charges. Whatever. But back then it didn't seem quite as bad because like an album would come out and then 7 months later people would start paying attention to it, and then 6 months later it'd have a hit single, and then maybe 3 months later it'd be a surprise second hit single, and then people would start buying it more, and that sort of a thing I feel like happened more often. I'm just saying, and that is again not something that happens now.
Well, right, the whole music industry is different with streaming and everything like that. But here are the songs that were on the radio.
It's the present.
Yes. Here's the songs that were on the radio the week that, around the time that Sinead O'Connor released her album. Number 10, No More Lies by Michelle. Oh, I don't know that song. But I do know number 9. Number 9, Black Velvet by Alana Miles.
That's right, Alana Miles.
Yep, Black Velvet.
Yeah, her only real big hit, but I feel like I never listened to that album. I think I did have the single, however. I did like that quite a bit.
Yeah, it was a good one. Number 8, We Can't Go Wrong by Covergirls. Unfamiliar with that one.
Well, we were young.
That's right. I'm
not sure. You haven't said any words that I recognize
yet. Don't remember. You remember Black Velvet by Alana Miles, right? Black Velvet.
Oh, yep, I do. Yep. Yes, I do.
That's it.
Bring you to your knees.
That's it. There it is.
There it is. Thank you.
Black Velvet, if you please.
I mean, I got the medicine if you got the disease.
Yeah. Here's number 7. Price of Love by Bad English.
What?
Yep.
Is happening?
I don't know.
With this top 10. It's like this weirdos rogues gallery of funk.
We're going to get into it now. I think from 6 to 1, you may not know these songs, but you know all of the artists because...
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I know the band Bad English, but I just don't know that song.
Right.
Are there any sandwich artists among
you're saying
them,
that theme's going to continue?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, you should know. There's a couple of songs you're definitely going to know, but no sandwich artist, just a music artist.
Oh, okay.
Number
Makes sense.
6, Here We Are by Gloria Estefan. So we all know Gloria Estefan.
Yep, I know Gloria Estefan. I don't know that song, though.
I don't know her releasing songs in 1990. I don't feel like that's appropriate.
Right. You're like, Miami Sound Machine.
What are you doing here?
Exactly.
This is weird, Gloria.
Number 5, this is another one I'm not sure. All or Nothing by Milli Vanilli.
Man, they were so big. They had chart-topping songs that were bad.
Yeah,
like that All or Nothing is not very good, but they were so big. Here, let's hear a little bit of it.
I mean, the only Milli Vanilli song I want to listen to is "Blame It on the Rain."
That song was so bad. Let's hear a little bit of it.
That's right.
Like, hey, does this stink?
That's right. Yeah. Oh, this tastes so bad. Try it. You got to try how bad this tastes.
This is like a cultural anthropology investigation. This is on the radio.
What was their other? So
you know what, Eric?
This was the really. Oh, I remember this now. This is the one. This was popular because it was sexual. They say like something's gotta show when you're laying under me. I remember like the 6th grade girls were like scandalized.
I would say this, Eric. If you said that that song was a mistake, that is not the first mistake Americans made, nor will it be the last.
That's right.
No, I think it was Milli Vanilli was the last one. What are you talking about?
That's it. Done. Milli Vanilli. We're over. Number
Yeah, we
4.
nipped it in the bud with
It's
Milli
been
Vanilli.
smooth sailing ever
It's really
since
been
Milli
just
Vanilli.
a cake. It's been a moonwalk. Yeah.
That's right. A cakewalk, a moonwalk. Number 4, Rome by the B-52s.
Oh,
Great
a
song.
classic.
Well, I know that.
Yep.
I get to Rome if you want to.
That's it. That's it.
Thank you, the B-52s, for being on the radio in 1990 and saving us all.
That's right. And here's another song we all know. Number 3, Opposites Attract by Paula Abdul.
I love the shit out of this album.
Yeah.
I love this song like crazy. Oh my god. I thought she was so cute in the other videos, and then this one had an animated Roger Rabbit type thing happening. And I loved Roger Rabbit. I was 12. It was great. I loved
That
Paula
was not
Abdul.
MC Cool Cat. That wasn't Roger Rabbit.
That's right.
I know, but it's a Roger Rabbit deal where she's dancing with an animated thing. Come on. Or is it like Space Jam to you? Because like I feel like you're like way too old for Space Jam.
I don't have a connection to Space Jam. No.
Neither do I, and I'm like younger than you, so whatever. I mean, it's Roger Rabbit, right?
Yeah, I do have a connection to Roger Rabbit.
Number 2 is Dangerous by Roxette, which I don't remember
I know
this one.
that song. Yeah.
Is Dangerous? I only remember She's Got the Look.
I mean, that's the big one. She's got the look. But this was not the big one. But I kind of remember it.
You know she's a little bit dangerous.
Oh, there it is.
A little bit dangerous. I had this cassette for sure.
Okay.
I think it's called The Look.
Well, that's the name of the song. Yeah, I remember that song.
Yeah, but I think the album was also
that's
called
one of
The
those
Look.
cassettes I would have talked my sister into buying because I wanted to listen to it, but I was too embarrassed to buy it myself.
That's right.
That makes sense, but if you were 11, you'd just be like, ooh, Roxette.
She's got the look.
Yeah, I mean, I would just dance around my room singing those weed songs.
And then number 1 from Miss Jackson, If You're Nasty, Escapade.
Ooh, that song was ubiquitous.
Yeah.
That's the one that starts like, it sounds like you're in some sort of an airlock or something like that.
An airlock?
There's a noise, like a sort of a empty room noise or something.
Well, all right. Those are the songs that were on the radio around the time that Sinead O'Connor released I Do Not Want What I Don't Have. What I haven't got.
What you haven't got. Yeah,
I do not want
you're correcting her grammar.
That's right.
You're correct, but she's incorrect. But that's her right.
I guess
as
so.
the author of the piece.
But Eric, you want to go ahead and kick off that conversation? You want to ask Greg a question?
Yeah. So, in a cursory review of Miss O'Connor's career, this appears to be sort of surprisingly popular because of that big old hit single. But what it really looks like is that it was a pretty solid second album to her fairly popular first album. And by popular, I mean like college radio popular or like rock critic popular kind of a thing. So like I feel like that's essentially the kind of artist she kind of always was, essentially. But my question is easy. Either you were familiar with her at that 1987 era, or did you come across her on the radio just like I did, or MTV like most people did also?
I would say my exposure to her was definitely MTV. I was not familiar with her prior to this song, to the song, the Nothing Compares to You song. Yes, I was not familiar with her prior to that. And quite frankly, I'm not familiar with her post that either.
But do you remember, so yeah, it's been established, it's canon, that Greg and I had cable, and we did watch MTV, and so yeah, Nothing Compares to You was a huge video, but then The Emperor's New Clothes was also like the next single. Do you remember the video for that, Greg? Watching that, seeing that video?
Listening to the album, that song, certainly I had memories of that song, but I don't remember the video. Wait, well, come to think of it, maybe I do remember the video now that you're pointing it out to me. Like as my head goes through that Rolodex of information.
Right. I'm surprised the song didn't trigger that, because listening to the song on the album, I was like, oh, I think I know this video. So...
yeah, I'm going to have to look that up after this podcast, look up that video again. But yes, I do remember that song, and I remember enjoying that song. So.
Yeah. And what did you think of anything else, the rest of the album, though, off of this?
And this was the first time that I ever listened to the album. I did not listen to it back then. I wasn't like anti Sinead O'Connor, but I just wasn't like pro Sinead O'Connor either. I just enjoyed the Nothing Compared to You song and The Emperor's New Clothes. I'm
really interested about this though, because at the time, our age difference makes you what age? What you were? What in college?
17, 18. He was graduating from high school in 1990, beginning of 1990.
Yeah, 1990. Graduating 18. In March. Yeah, May. I guess in May of 1990, I graduated from high school. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so she was out, right? And you were saying like you had this impression of her from the previous year, which we won't go into.
Because it's the 80s.
I mean, if you would have told me to guess what year Nothing Compares to You came out, I would have said like 87 probably. I wouldn't have even guessed
Oh, wow. Well, I just sent you...
That's just my impression
I just sent you a text of her first album cover, The Lion and the Cobra, and that came out in 1987. And that album, this seems like the kind of artist that she was actually on track to be. Like the first single reached number 12 in the Netherlands and number 5 in Belgium. The second single was a mainstream pop hit, the UK, peaking at number 17. And then this is it.
What was the name of that second hit?
I Want Your Hands on Me. No. Sorry. Mandinka, that one. I Want Your Hands on Me was also on this album, but it was also featured in the 1988 horror film Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, which I enjoyed. So anyway, kind of a low-level... rising sort of interesting artist is sort of where she was in 1987. 1990 is when you run across her at the grocery store, essentially, and everywhere and always. The ubiquity of a number one pop single in 1990 cannot be overstated, I don't think, really, because you're not going to get away from piped-in music anywhere, really.
No. That song was everywhere. That's for sure.
And it's a still enjoyable song, even though we've come across songs that were everywhere, and it's like, well, I'm done listening to that. I've listened to that song enough. This song, when Nothing Compares to You, when listening to this album again, I was like, yeah, that's still a really good song. I really do like that. So.
Yeah, well, it was written by a professional songwriter.
I think, and that's also, as I was listening to it, it was like, yeah, that Prince, he really did know how to write songs.
Write a song.
I mean, I think we all knew that, but I do think that this is one of those things where it was the producer, and it was Sinead, and it was the song, and just all the combination, probably the studio that day, whatever. Like, you can feel it. What's her name? Nora Jones. She talks about that recording of that. What's that song?
Tell me why. Don't know why.
Don't know why. And you can feel that song's got something special going on in it too. There's some songs that have just got it, that zhuzh. I mean, like, not all Prince songs do, for sure.
Well, right. And even Prince's version of this is kind of like...
I mean, it wasn't really released for good reason, right? Like, as an afterthought, a B-side. It didn't have it, but... And
I don't know that I've ever heard Prince's version of the song. I thought he just gave it to her and called it a day.
No, they had heard it, Sinead and the producer, and they were like, the producer was like, well, you should do this, but I think they turned it into like a minor key or something like that. They definitely slowed it down to her. And I think this album is like, so her voice is going to be the highlight of this album, but there's a couple of songs where it's just like, yeah, I'd like a little bit more, because like Nothing Compared to You does have the orchestra playing in the background, but what like I'm Stretched on Your Grave has like that 80s techno beat way too long. Yeah, it just goes, it takes too long, and then at the end there's some Irish fiddle that comes in. It's like, oh, thank God. Give me something a little bit different, but because that song was one
I
was
don't know.
like,
The end of that song, I feel like, takes forever, though. There's a few of these songs, the end of it just takes forever.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't take it anymore.
Right.
Well, that was going to be my question for you, Greg, was when you were aware of this song, like, what was your impression of like what kind of artist she was, or what genre, or what did you think of her in general, like back then?
I mean, honestly, I she wasn't kind of part of my music realm.
Right.
Like you said, the song was ubiquitous, and I thoroughly enjoyed the song. I mean, I looked forward to seeing it on MTV, but it was just kind of, if you would talk to me, I would have said Sinead O'Connor was a one-hit wonder, because it's this song and then her ripping up the Pope on the Saturday Night Live. Those are the only two things I know about Sinead O'Connor. So it didn't create an impression on me enough to even form that kind of opinion back then. It was
somebody
else's
music.
Yes. So it wasn't in my sphere at all, which, 1990, that was kind of a year for me where like I said, that was freshman and then high school and the beginning of freshman year. And I think also that's like Matthew Sweet's Girlfriend came out that year. And that's kind of an album that rocked my world, and that kind of, I was like a classic, back then we didn't call it classic rock necessarily, but, I was a classic rock. You're listening
to KC95 in 1990 because,
yeah, we were still full into KC99. And Matthew Sweet's album got played on KC95 back in 1990. I don't know that they've ever played it again, but they did it in 1990.
They probably still play Girlfriend.
And so that kind of switched my music taste over to kind of, rock and roll, but they called it alternative. They were
you got
calling
the college
it
rock,
yeah, college rock.
Yeah, you came back with. I remember you come back with the Pixies and it was another band that was
Pixie, the Throwing Muses. I think at the same time I came back with them. There was just So Sinead just got kind of lost in that transition for me. Is what I'm saying. So I did not lock on to her at that point in time. In fact, I probably would have thought of her as like pop music, and like I said, I just wasn't a follower of pop music at that point in time.
Right.
The Emperor's News Clothes. That song does have some guitar going on it though, but that's about the only song that does.
Yeah, and I enjoyed that song, and her voice on that song is great. The way she says "I really don't think so" is just awesome, to be honest with you. And then I was actually listening to that song thinking, Chris Cornell does Nothing I Compares to You as a cover. I think I would have liked to hear him do a cover of
Emperor's News Clothes,
but ramp it up. Kind of thing, I feel like that song with more distortion would have helped that song just a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah, it's very 90s pop produced in this version, but you could hear it could be lots of different genres, different producers.
And then the other song I wanted to highlight, I kind of like Black Boys on Mopeds. The lyrics on that one, just because she name checks what she says. Yeah, England's not the mythical land of Madame George and Roses, which is Van Morrison has a song called Madame George. So it's a dig at Van Morrison, an Irish, Northern Irish guy, though, was, I think, towed the line with Britain, where Sinead O'Connor, the Republic of Ireland. And so he's saying.
Yeah, I'm not going to defend anybody that Sinead attacks or attack Sinead today.
Yeah.
She's kind of a wild card, and we all know that. I'm not sure Van Morrison's the greatest guy these days.
Well, I just wanted to highlight, too, listen to recent WTF with Joan Baez. Joan Baez was like, yeah, Van Morrison, love his music, hate the man, but he still makes beautiful music.
Yeah, that's
Well, as Oasis fans, we know what it's like to enjoy the music and not really respect the guys making the music.
That's right.
I guess whenever I was an Oasis fan, I thought, I guess, really honestly, looking back on it.
When you were an Oasis fan,
no longer,
how did you fall off the Oasis wagon?
Are they still together?
Well, no.
Yeah, well, I guess you could say that. Although, the funny thing is we were always taught that like Noel was the backbone of that band, but honestly, the solo Liam stuff is much more enjoyable than the Noel stuff, which is still good. I'm not, but the Liam stuff is feels more Oasis-esque than the. Anyway, this isn't an Oasis podcast. Sorry.
I mean, it could very easily become one.
That's right.
We're there at all moments. We're about to go there. But we're not talking about that right this very moment. So that song's pretty good, right?
Black Boys on Mopeds, or which one are you talking about?
I was
still on the Emperor's New Groove, or not New Groove, Emperor's New Clothes.
The Emperor's New Clothes, yeah.
Yeah, that song's pretty good. I actually kind of like the song Three Babies. I think it's pretty.
Yeah,
it's very spare and sparse, just like you're saying. Well, maybe the album is to a extreme degree.
I think I was
really,
ready.
Honestly, the beautiful part of Nothing Compares to You is this, I don't know if it's a string quartet or whatever, but it really works well, right? Also, I did want to mention before we get off that song,
The Emperor's New Clothes.
No, back to Nothing Compares to You, is that the video is just, that's really powerful, right? Like you mentioned, like waiting for the video. It's just mostly her intensely singing it to the camera, right? In the dark, is most of the video that I recall. Don't you think?
Yeah, it's kind of a tight close-up of her face.
I mean, I think they cut the different scenes where she's mostly singing to the guy. It feels gray to me. My memory of it is that it's a very gray video.
But I just remember it being like she's staring into your soul as she sings it.
I think that's the beginning, but yeah, I think it does. It cuts away for a little bit. There's some scenes of people walking, and yeah.
But anyway, all that came together. Great song. That Black Boys on Mopeds is very politically charged. The lyrics are. So she's out of the box, pretty showing herself to be a highly political person. Going back to the first album as well. Not just a little bit either. She's saying this kind of a country, you think it's a good place. This is the kind of place where the police kill black boys on mopeds, which is the line in this movie, which is, it turns out her protests are kind of like just too early.
Yeah. That's right. She's
like, she's totally right.
Just ahead of the curve.
Like ahead of her. Yeah, she's 30 years ahead of her game. And so really, honestly, a woman in the music industry of all places trying to behave in such a radical way, especially, on Saturday Night Live. Good grief. The Illuminati can't handle that.
Right.
And this has been the last podcast on the left, but not with that guy that's abusive or whatever. Do you guys know about that?
What? No, that's all right. Gossip. Yeah, we'll go ahead and keep talking about Sinead O'Connor.
Yeah. Do you like anything on the back half of this album?
I'll tell you what. I listened to this album twice, and I listened to it while I was working out, and I would not suggest you listen to it while you're working out.
It's not the most motivating.
Workout album.
Yeah.
But every single song on this album has something I like, right?
Yeah.
But many of these songs on the album just get old to me kind of too quickly. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know about songs lasting too long.
I feel so different. I really enjoy the build of it, but then it's a 6-minute long song, and that's 2 minutes too long, right? And I like that I stretched out on your grave, like the back end of that song, I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. I mean, even Emperor's New Clothes, which is a song I like, even like the last 15-20 seconds of it, they're just hitting that guitar part over and over again.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can end it now. I need to go it on. But again, every song there's pieces of it that I really enjoyed. Like whether you say it's like the lyrics of the Black Boys on Moped. And I think I noticed that she once again, I was working out, so I wasn't taking notes necessarily, but I felt like she kept saying things about like three's like a magic number in this thing, because there's a song Three Babies, and I think in the Black Boys on Moped she talks about holding 3 babies, and I think there's another part where she's like they had three babies kind of thing. So in another song,
she had at this point had a child, her first child, and at a pretty young age. Like she entered the music industry at the age of 15 or 16, and wasn't all that old when her first album came out. Just a little older than Gary and I think she's between our ages, maybe more like Gregory Anthony's age.
Yes.
She's writing about really serious stuff, and it's really interesting. I think that you just hit the nail on the head. Like, I just want to get the Greg cut of these songs, because, I really have a theory. I was reading about the Hunt for Red October
she was born
soundtrack.
in 66.
So 10 years, 12 years, older. I was reading about the Hunt for Red October soundtrack, and the official release is really short. It's like 40 minutes long, so they could fit it all on the cassette. And then I was thinking the reverse of this when you were talking about Sinead O'Connor. Maybe they were like, well, we could just make them all 7 minutes long because it's a CD these days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I remember this was very much a CD that people bought. Like, I think it sold 7 million copies. Most of that was CDs. And I wonder if that, like, shot them in the... I mean, it's pleasant enough to have on in the background, I suppose, but I think you're right with, like, active listening.
Yeah, even, like, the title song, you know, it's the last track. I do not want what I haven't got is it's an a cappella song. Yeah, it's just her voice. And it's like, yeah, you have a pretty voice, and I understand what you're doing, but it's like, yeah, I just need something more for that song. And it is even like a guitar accompaniment or a piano accompaniment. Yeah. It would have been like, yeah. And it kind of also drags a little bit.
And I think the songwriting structure isn't quite there, honestly, either. Like, it seems like some of these songs, the reason that they can't be very long is because it seems like it's more of a verse, or something. Like, it never really builds to like a pre-chorus or chorus very often,
right?
Like the Prince song does, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine. It's actually not like I found everything to be kind of listenable, but you're right. Like, I think an edited version would go down much easier.
Yeah. Needs to be reproduced. All right. Well, yeah, I think we can maybe go ahead and rate. I think we've talked about it. Anybody else have anything else that they wanted to highlight on Sinead's album?
I mean, I think we should just talk a little bit about Sinead herself, since she died not that long ago, this year.
Yep.
Right? So she just moved back to Dublin from the countryside and this spring to sort of finish up her final, would have been her the last album that she was working on.
It was the summer, July 26th. Is when she passed away. And
she really was pretty active. I was looking at her post Nothing Compares to You career, as you put it, Greg, and she really came back again and again. She sort of became more of an indie artist for a while that had a moderate amount of success. She'd be on like Lollapalooza and stuff like that, and then really tried a lot of musical styles over her career. A lot of mental instability is a big part of her story, because of a lot of, I think, childhood abuse is essentially the short version, the sad version of her instability that's, sort of plagued her whole life. And the poor thing's son committed suicide like a couple of years ago, and he was only 17. So, no, we don't say, sorry. Actually, public service announcement, you don't commit suicide, because that's like not a crime, right? Anyway, that's the sad story of Miss Sinead, who died this year. I don't think we're at like an autopsy or a known cause of that. I think suicide's probably suspected because of her, previous attempts. She's actually been pretty actively suicidal on Twitter a few times, but still comes back, kind of stabilizes and releases an album here and there, and like we'll just be like, okay, now this is going to be an experimental covers album or reggae album. So anyway, tip of the cap to somebody who was, protesting some stuff pretty early and took it on the chin for it. I mean, in that era, it just seemed like she was insane for saying anything bad about the Pope, to be honest, in my mind. But, what she was saying was like 100% true. So you never know. Maybe listen to people, I guess.
That's your advice. Listen to people. All right.
I mean, maybe it's a little too vanilla for you, but that's all I've got when it comes to this entire Catholic Church sexual abuse scandal, I guess. For this moment.
Okay, good. Yeah, okay. We did talk about her next album, Am I Not Your Girl, Eric, on the podcast. We did discuss that one time.
Yeah, and that is not only sort of a bad way to get into Sinead, and I think if we went back and listened to it, I wouldn't say that I loved it. I can't even remember. But, I don't think it was even very well received at the time, where this album was sort of like, hey, she's got some interesting stuff going on, whereas that one's like some covers and stuff, and it's just sort of a mishmash. But then some other later ones are more, I think, well regarded. It's not like she totally fell off a cliff. That's my read on, sort of just reviewing stuff. I've actually been kind of interested in her. She has a really, really beautiful, those very special Christmases
Yeah. The song, those compilation albums they have. Yep.
She's got Silent Night, a really, really pretty Silent Night that she sings, and
you can listen to it in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, give it a month or whatever, and give it a listen. Also, she was on the Michael Collins soundtrack in the '90s and later '90s, and I had that soundtrack. I actually listened to Sinead sing to me at Christmas time, and whenever I listened to my Michael Collins soundtrack while I was studying.
Well, what rating would you give? I do not want what I haven't got. How many stars would you give this album?
Okay, well, I do need to start. Well, shouldn't we start with Greg?
I would have went to him next, but if you want to do that, Greg, how many stars would you give Sinead O'Connor?
Well, I'm gonna give kind of a double kind of review here because, like, let's say I was forced to give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Like, those were my only two choices.
Yep.
I'd give it a thumbs up for sure.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
But since I am giving stars, I'm only going to give it 2 stars overall.
Yeah.
Because it's not something I'm going to look forward to listening to.
Yeah.
For all the reasons I've already said. So my rating is 2 stars.
Okay.
But it's a positive 2 stars.
Gotcha. Okay, Eric, you want me to go ahead and rate it? You seem to be reluctant to really.
I don't know. Okay, can I just say, I feel like I agree with what Greg just said, but I just feel like I have to say that Nothing Compares to You song is definitely 4 stars as a song.
I agree with that.
And I feel like that's important to note because there's a lot of 2-star albums or 2.5-star albums. I think I'd say 2.5 stars on this album.
Yep.
That don't have a 4-star song.
That's right.
Obviously.
So, yeah, exactly. That's where I am too. I'm going to give it 2.5 stars for the album as a whole, but it does contain a 4.5 star, 5-star song. I mean, because listening to it, it was like, this is a great song. I really do like this song.
It is a great song.
Yeah. So,
I thought what was unique about that song too was like how I was complaining like all the other songs are like a little bit long. Like that song goes and then there's that little break in the middle and you're kind of like, oh, is the song ending? And then she comes back with that last verse and you're like, oh, I'm happy that I
get some more. Yeah,
that's how good. So that's how good that song is.
That's a good one.
Well, and she blasts back with all the flowers, right?
Yeah,
right,
all the flowers. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, well, that was Sinead O'Connor. We're gonna come back. We're gonna take a break, but then we're gonna come back and talk about John McTiernan's "The Hunt for Red October."
The hunt is on.
The most brilliant commander in the Soviet Navy. Remy has trained most of their officer corps. He's nearly a legend in the submarine community. The most deadly submarine ever built. This thing could park a couple of 100 warheads off Washington. Nobody know a thing about it until it was all over. And once more, we play our dangerous game with our old adversaries, the American Navy. His plan is a mystery. A man with your responsibilities reading about the end of the world. Apparently, he has suffered a kind of nervous breakdown in which he announced his intention to fire his missiles on the United States. He wants to help you hunt him down, kill him. Open the outer doors, firing point procedures. We sail into history. Going back to Mars. Ramius might be trying to defect. You're just an analyst.
There's a lot of talking in this trailer. So anyway, welcome back to my so-called podcast. This is Eric Spiegel here.
And this is Gary Linton, and we're still joined by Greg Linton, and we're going to talk...
Hi, I'm Greg Linton.
Yep. We're going to talk about The Hunt for Red October in this half, after talking about Sinead O'Connor's album previously.
Yep. I do not want what I haven't got.
Yep.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Hunt for Red October, but first, we're going to talk about what was out at the movie theaters, Gary, because that is the next segment, right?
Oh, yeah. We usually talk about what was playing at the multiplex. And if you didn't want to see Hunt for Red October, you had some other options. Or I guess
you could go. What was that?
I guess this just gives you a sense of the kind of movies Hollywood was making at the same time.
It was like when Greg could go to the movies and see movies, he could go see these movies.
That's right.
And these were some of maybe the first rated R movies he could go see by himself.
I was going to say, I could see rated R movies that year. Yep.
This rated R movie you probably didn't see. It's called Revenge, starring Kevin Costner Costner as kind of a bad guy. It's sort of a pseudo thriller. Not a big hit. Number 9.
Who was the actress in that one?
That's a great question. Do you know the actors of this? I mean,
no.
Don't you think it's irritating to me that Box Office Mojo takes me to IMDb Pro only? It's like, ugh. Oh, here, I think I can get it from the poster. It looks like Madeline Stowe, the old Stowster, and on the poster, Kevin Costner's got his shirt all the way unbuttoned, chest all the way open, and I don't know what she's wearing. Maybe maybe some sort of a sheet, I guess.
Tony Scott film. It's a Tony Scott film.
Yeah, that's a weird. That's Tony Scott film. Maybe we should watch this for the podcast. I don't know. It came out in the 90s. I don't know. We can watch it sometime. Anyway, that was out. Then there was Glory. Glory was actually came out in '89. Still out.
Oh, so yep.
Denzel just won the Oscar, or was about to win the Oscar, or whatever. Denzel Washington, that's who I was talking about.
Yeah.
Number 7.
We all put that together.
Madhouse. Now let me tell you what Madhouse is about. The luxurious villa of a yuppie couple, Mark and Jesse Bannister, is overrun by loads of uninvited guests who turn the house upside down and nearly destroy it. Are you guys familiar with Madhouse?
I think maybe.
No. Kirstie Alley? Is it? It's like
It's Kirstie Alley, John Larroquette. The tagline is, "The bad news is you have house guests. There is no good news." And it's one of those movie posters where it's a drawing, an artist's rendition of Kirstie Alley, and it does not look like John Larroquette at all. And they are holding back this cartoonish door, and what's trying to get in is like a guy with tea, a woman with a pennant, a cat, a chainsaw, an elephant, and some sort of a creepy clown or something. So I really don't understand what this movie is about.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Well, we don't need to talk about that right now.
Okay. But whatever.
But you're right. It
made 21 million domestic, and I feel like I'm not familiar with it. I feel like I'm familiar with all movies because I was obsessively reading Premiere and Entertainment Weekly at this point. So I feel like, why don't I know anything about Madhouse? But anyway, number 6, Hard to Kill. That's, I think, Steven Seagal's maybe second movie. My first Steven Seagal movie. I watched it because my dad rented it. That would be the way I would watch rated R movies if my dad wanted to watch them on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
Do you guys know this one, Hard to Kill?
Well, yeah, Steven Seagal is Hard to Kill. Yep.
Yeah. Kelly LeBrock. Yeah.
Yeah, Weird Sciences, Kelly LeBrock.
Yeah.
And then number 5, the Best Picture winner, Driving Miss Daisy. Number 4, Bad Influence, featured prominently in Erotic 90s, Karina Longworth's brilliant, recent deep dive into sexuality's representation on film and the difficulty Hollywood has in being grown up. Bad Influence, she used that to great effect to talk about how it was an era of where we could start making dirty movies at home and how that essentially changed things. And it certainly changed things for Rob Lowe's career. And this was the movie that came out right after Post Sex Tape.
Curtis Hanson, also the director of L.A. Confidential. So
yeah,
well, look at that.
I mean, and 8 Mile.
That's right.
Number 3, House Party.
Oh yeah, ain't no party like a house party or a pajama.
Now, it's my understanding that was on HBO a lot.
I guess I don't remember really watching House Party on HBO though. Yeah, we never really watched it down there.
I've never seen it. I didn't have cable.
Yeah.
Be careful, listeners. Number 2, movie I have seen, Joe versus the Volcano.
Oh yeah, Brain Cloud.
Yeah.
Meg Ryan's super cute in all 3 hairstyles in that one.
Meg Ryan is so delightful in that movie in so many different ways. I think she's dynamite. Anyway, number 1 is the Hunt for Red October. Number 1.
That was the number 1 movie that week?
Coming out, number 1 movie.
Well, all right.
It made its money back. It cost a mere $50 million to make The Hunt for Red October, a tentpole movie coming out in March. A gamble that paid off big time.
All right. Well, yeah, great. This was John McTiernan's follow-up to Die Hard. This was a huge hit by Tom Clancy, a book in 1984. The producers...
Whoa, the ghost of 1984 is just infusing this
That's
podcast.
Right. The producers originally wanted Harrison Ford for the movie, but he said it was too... he wanted more money than they were willing to pay for him.
Gotcha.
But when the next year, when they wanted to do the sequel, Alec Baldwin was like, well, I want this much money. And the producer was like, well, that's how much Harrison Ford wants. So we'll pay it, but we're going to pay it to Harrison Ford. And
I was wondering why that. Is that? I mean, that's what you read. That's
yep,
how that story
that's
went
how
down?
the story went down.
Oh, look at that! Yeah.
So
I wonder if Harrison Ford lamented not doing the original one then.
Yeah. So I guess so that's my question: is either Harrison Ford makes a better Jack Ryan, or Alec Baldwin does a better Jack Ryan in The Hunt for Red October? Would you have wanted to see Harrison Ford in Red October, or you think Alec Baldwin does a pretty good job in here?
I think Alec Baldwin does a pretty good job in here. I mean, obviously, he was my first introduction to the Jack Ryan character. And honestly, the feel of this film, are the other two films directed by John McTiernan? Do you know?
No. He was
I was going to say,
he...
the feel of this film feels very Alec Baldwin-ish, where those other two films feel very Harrison Ford-ish.
I was going to say earlier off air, but you guys said I should save it. This is cinematography by Jan de Bont, right? Who goes on to make Speed. And you've got Rennie Harlan kind of taking over Die Hard from John McTiernan.
Well, right. So they wanted John McTiernan, but he was busy doing... He was like, well, you got to make Hunt for Red October. I signed on for that. I can't do... And then when it came time for... to make Patriot Games, was that next, or Clear and Present Danger? Which one was next?
Patriot Games is next, and then Clear and Present Danger.
Okay, Patriot Games.
Patriot Games is like, this time it's revenge. And then the third one's about, like, computers and drug cartels.
Okay. But McTiernan was tied up on another movie when it was time, so he kept missing the sequels. But anyway, Eric, you were talking about Jan de Bont, the cinematographer.
Yeah, well, the point is the connective tissue. I feel like McTiernan's kind of a little bit generational above these younger kind of guys that sort of took on into more of the 90s. And he sort of spans sort of the late 80s, early 90s kind of a thing. And I'm just thinking of them sort of passing the torch with a movie like this, which it really is very kind of stodgy, I would say, in a kind of a nice way, in a very comforting way to me, in a way that made me feel safe and nostalgic. But I don't know if a blockbuster is going to be this sort of like have this essentially tone as this movie does, which is like, to me, McTiernan doing kind of a straightforward script, whereas Die Hard is a very clever script, and he's shooting in a very straightforward way.
He's shooting Die Hard in a straightforward way with a clever script.
Yeah,
I mean, he's shooting Hunt for Red October in a clever way with the straightforward.
No. Oh. He's always doing it, and so first of all, the way he shoots things is pretty beautiful, and he works with good cinematographers. Like, that's his, I would say, one of the things that I feel like he moves the camera while he's cognizant of the lighting and the movement of the camera. It makes things look interesting. One thing that I hate to say, like, Rennie Harlan kind of rips this off, but it makes it like look 80s cool as opposed to 80s cheap, if you know the difference, if you know what I mean. Like, I feel like the Nakatomi Plaza party looks like a pretty nice place, and he moves the camera around and everything's lit in a way that's like, it's pretty neat. You kind of to be there, actually, even on the floors that aren't finished yet, it's like gorgeous, right? There's always like a helicopter with a lens flare outside, whatever.
Well, right. So so Die Hard, 4-star film. Okay, it's a great film. Okay, but this is Hunt for Red October.
It's stodgier than Die Hard is I guess is a simplistic. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, Greg, what's your take on Hunt for Red October?
I mean, in regards to that, I think like film wise, I think it looks like a good film, right? It doesn't look like a cheap 80s film or even like a cheap early 90s film. It looks like a quality film that holds up pretty well.
Looks nice.
It looks nice. It's a good looking film. I mean, even the special effects hold up very well. I mean, the corniest special effects is that last scene where they're coming down the river, where they're superimposed on whatever.
Yeah, clearly blue screened.
Yeah, whatever. But even that's not even distractingly. It doesn't take away from the scene necessarily. It's just
as a kid,
a little bit more.
As a kid, I just thought it must be like a really weird time of day. I do remember watching that, but it was on VHS, so who can say what it looked like? It probably was very convincing. But yeah, that's how I experienced this movie. I remember very distinctly watching it like on a Sunday morning on a VHS. Like we would do that sometimes, like rent too many movies, and then on Sunday morning we were like, we gotta watch this one before we return it, and I'd be like, oh, twist my arm. And I remember watching this one, but it's a good yarn. I feel like this is not that complicated a story. Am I wrong?
No, it's not at all.
Which is funny because I know he had trouble getting it made because the studios were like, "This is too complicated a story."
Well, I think the book is there's a lot of technical detail in the book. I didn't read the book, but reading about it,
you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
it's like it's all obsessed with the authenticity and it's almost just like it's got a super califragilisticexpialidocious quiet drive.
That's right. Yeah.
And then just like, don't explain it. Fine. We're all fine.
Right. But the book does explain it. The book explains goes into great detail where Clancy used to brag about, people were like, the CIA people would be like, or the a military were like, how'd you get all that information? And he was like, I just made it up. And so is
that a brag? I'm just concerned about the nature of reality. Like, what does that even mean?
Right, yeah, exactly.
He can just guess what's actually happening in the minds of the CIA? Or is he just that wicked smart? I don't know. It seems Trumpy.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I mean, that's the way the world works, right? Like, somebody dreamed something up, right? Multiple people dream the same thing at the same time.
Oh, okay. So you're saying the brag is that. So, but what is he saying about it? He's saying something about the nature of collective consciousness.
Yep.
I'm just saying that he had a dream, he executed his dream, and there just turned out to be reality that coincided with it. The first person who wrote about a black hole, I'm sure, was just making up a black hole, and it turns out there are black holes.
I think maybe it was math first, Gregory.
I don't know. I feel like some of those things are in sci-fi books before they hit the math board.
Now, that's totally true, right? Our imaginations are powerful vessels. And also the collective consciousness, right? That's how it does push forward. In any case, though, this movie did get made eventually, despite its extreme complexity of Jack Ryan guessing the whole plot quite early in the film.
That's right, yeah. That's where Clancy's like, yeah, I'm just like Jack Ryan. I just figure stuff out. I can do it. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, so Jack Ryan. So as a kid, when I saw this movie, I just thought of this movie as being a movie about Sean Connery's character as he's escaping the USSR, and I had no questions about that because, like all the propaganda, right? Everybody would want to leave the USSR. Essentially, was what we were fed.
Yep.
In any case, I do like that he's concerned about the nuclear aspect. I did not remember that. The first strike capability, he just did not, he's trying to do anything he could. And it's sort of like this idea of him being a legend in the submarine community, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I did remember the Alec Baldwin character, but I also remembered like the Tim Curry character and the Sam Neill character. I didn't know their actors' names, but like, I didn't really feel like it was a movie about the Alec Baldwin character. And it wasn't until later when Patriot Games got made that I kind of learned that there was any connection between these two movies because I wasn't a Tom Clancy reader. So then when I went back and watched Hunt for Red October and I realized his name was Jack Ryan, I was like, oh, I guess.
Well, yeah, that was also reading about about that whole exchange with Harrison Ford. One of the reasons he didn't also want to do Hunt for Red October is like, well, it's not really Jack Ryan's movie. It's Ramis. What's Sean Connery's character's name? Ramis,
something like that.
It's Ramius, guys.
Ramius.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, it's his, it's his movie, and so Harrison Ford didn't want to play that. But then, when
he didn't want to play secondary to Sean Connery.
Yeah, he was like, yeah.
Who had just? I mean, he really owed him. Yeah, he owed him. He just was second fiddle to Harrison Ford.
That's right.
The previous year.
Yep.
And that's what I was going to say to your either or is that I think it would have been a little too samey and a little jarring to have, these two characters, these two actors playing such different roles in a big tentpole movie so soon afterwards. Don't you think?
Well, yeah, but the producers didn't. Yeah, didn't feel that way. What were you going to say, Greg?
I'm remembering it back then. I don't know that I, as a 17-year-old, would have been sophisticated enough to I would have just probably accepted whatever Hollywood fed me. If they would have put Harrison Ford in that role, I would have just accepted it was a Sean Connery and a Harrison Ford film. But honestly, I still feel I remember it as a Jack Ryan film, and then I was going to say early on, like it's like the least actioniest action movie that you can watch, right? Like, because there's not like
I would not call this an action movie.
I mean, no, not really. Not until the very end when the guns come out.
But like all thrillers have violence at the end. It's a political thriller of sorts. With I guess there's also sort of a bit of a whodunit, right? Because the Caterpillar drive's been sabotaged by somebody on the boat, and it's like a locked room mystery, right? It's got to be somebody. What do you guys think about that subplot?
It was there.
I mean, I thought, this time I saw it back in the 90s. I can't remember if I saw it in the theater or if I just saw it on HBO first. I cannot remember that.
Sure.
But I actually, going through this time, I would have thought they were setting it up that like the saboteur was actually Ramius himself, because he was creating this thing to get everybody off the boat. So the fact that it was just the cook, it was almost a letdown to me, because I wanted it to be Ramius's master plan, right? That was his master plan. He went and sabotaged it. That was his thing to get everybody off the boat, which is what Jack Ryan's theory was, right? He would have solved that problem already. So
maybe that would have been too complicated,
especially
too complicated for the Paramount executives to understand.
Even more complications. That's right. Yeah, and you're right that they do set that up, because when we go back to Quick and Dirty is he's defecting and he can't. They decide he can't get all the...
Not too dirty. It's PG.
Yeah.
It's not even PG-13, so it's not that dirty.
So the Russian captain is defecting, but, they determine that not all the crew members want to defect. And we see that what's the word I'm looking for? The higher ranking members are all...
Senior officers.
Senior officers, sure. Are
a spattering of senior officers, but there's also that one mechanic guy who's part of that group too.
That's true. Yeah, he's already defect also. But the crewman won't want to defect, and so he has to get them out. And the way he gets them out is that the sub gets nuclear. He's like, oh yeah, there's a leak, and we gotta abandon the sub because of the leak, and they blame that nuclear leak when the Caterpillar fails, right? Didn't they blame it on that? So it's almost like, well, yeah, that you thought he was going to be.
I thought it was part of this, right? And then they say the saboteur is just that cook. I guess it's that cook from the beginning.
And then
verify that? Yeah,
cook. I guess nobody was keeping track of him. He's still on the boat or the sub when everyone was abandoning. It's not like
I wouldn't say that paid off in any way.
Yeah.
But the not to jump ahead, I guess I was just going to say, though, just so I don't forget, the torpedo subterfuge scheming at the very end, I think, is a nice payoff. A nice final thing that happens, even though it is the death of many people, I guess. It is sort of a, cat and mouse sort of a thing that's going on.
Yeah.
That's enjoyable.
That's the action part.
That's right. Yeah, Stellan Skarsgård is in this.
Yeah. He's doing good work in that. I
think
always like him.
Yeah, we got to talk about it. I mean, the cast is top notch. I mean,
it's got everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, and James Earl Jones, I believe, carries forward with this character through the Harrison Ford ones, and I think this characterization is just so enjoyable. He's like a warm, intelligent guy that likes Jack and is like wanting to take care of him, and I just like so against stereotype of like the gruff super. I was really enjoying this. It's really different than a lot of James Earl Jones performances too. This character, but I was also
he's not a dark Sith Lord. It's kind of different.
Yeah, at no point does he reach out and sort of curl his fingers and Jack Ryan starts choking.
Yeah, it was really...
No. But he keeps hiding baseballs in his yard with that big dog.
That's right.
Right, and when the dog brings one to him, he's like, "Who's baseball, Ray?"
He's like, "Moonlight Grab."
Anyway, he's great in it. And I do like the sort of the 1990 idea of like government formal, like what it would look like. It's like all these really old guys in white stuff and like these red leather couches, and it's kind of dark, and I don't know. I just love those
speaking
aesthetics.
of that, this film is all male. Other than Jack Ryan's wife, it's all male.
That's like 3 seconds on film.
That's right.
And daughter, right? And daughter.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I always like that too when they show their home lives just for a little bit before the movie starts. That's a really common 80s thing, and I actually kind of dig it. It's actually in Jingle All the Way also. He's just a normal guy, Gary.
Yeah.
He's normal.
I mean,
He is normal. He should have just written a memo, y'all.
Which is the running gag throughout it. He says, should have just written a memo.
Yeah, should have just read a memo. That's actually too, because like when I was like remembering the film, like remember it, just like from the past, I remember always having this impression that like Jack Ryan was like thrust into this situation, like it wasn't like really his choice to be in this situation. But the truth is he seeks it out right from the beginning. There's a little bit, like you said, James Earl Jones is throwing him into it, but the truth is he's the one who got on a plane and flew to America and said, "Put me in this situation."
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a classic underdog. It's the exact same. I was watching that movie Spy, Melissa McCarthy movie Spy. I don't know if you've seen it. It's actually quite funny.
Yeah.
And
it was on just the other night. I watched like 10 minutes of it, but I've seen the whole thing before, yeah.
It's the same thing. She's an analyst, and she's like, there's this blah, blah, blah plot reason that I should go into the field, and everybody's like, screw that. And actually, hilariously, Jason Statham is very angry about this for the whole rest of the movie, and I very enjoy his angry comic performance. But anyway, he's like, I'm going to do this thing. I think the joke is not that he didn't want it, but like it's much bigger than he thought it would be. He didn't think it was going to be life or death, and then he didn't think it was going to be he was going to be there, and then it was like he didn't think that it was going to be him doing it, and he ends up on like a little sub going on the big sub.
Right. Well, I was going to say, but even though he wasn't, he's the one on that helicopter, and they're like, oh, we got to abandon this, and he's like, hell, I'm jumping out of this helicopter.
That's right. Yeah. He's like,
so.
Do you have reserve fuel? I can't use the reserve fuel unless it's a war. You better GD use that reserve fuel.
But, okay, so contrast this character, I should have written a memo character, with Harrison Ford in Patriot Games. The very first scene, there starts to be gunfire near him. He's not involved. And he just runs over and intervenes in this extreme bloodbath, kicking ass. And then he continues to kick all IRA, Irish butt, the whole movie, violently. It's really a different kind of movie, you're right. I wonder how much Harrison had to do with that. But, like, does Jack Ryan kick ass in this movie, do you feel like?
Not literally. Like, he's using his big brain to kick ass.
Yeah, and isn't that the character?
Well, yeah.
I mean, he's an analyst, like you said,
Right.
So
I just wonder. I've never gotten through one of these, but it seems like the character is like a nerd. But it's like, but then Jim from The Office, sure, good casting, but he's got to get it totally shredded.
Yeah, right.
To be Jack Ryan on Amazon.
I've not watched that Amazon show. Have you watched that Amazon show? Because I mean,
haven't.
the way the commercials, it's like he's a full out. I mean, obviously he's an.
He looks like John Wick, right?
Right. Yeah, but I mean, he's an ex-Marine. I mean, even in this one, he's an ex-Marine, right? So I mean, it's not like he doesn't know what he's doing in the.
I like how they drop that in this. Like he doesn't mention it, but somebody mentions it to somebody after he leaves the room. Like, hey, how about you cut him a little slack? He actually does know what he's talking about, but he's not going to say that. That was classy. I liked that. It makes him more likable, which is what you want to do with your hero, you know, especially whenever he's not going to whip everybody's ass. I think we do have to get to this before you guys get tired of talking about this movie. What do we think of the toupee?
Sean Connery's toupee.
When last we saw Sean Connery, he did a 1-2 punch of being super bald in both Last Crusade and The Untouchables. Yeah. And he shows up with a full head of white hair. What do you guys think of this toupee?
I mean, it was fine. I mean, the character, it was just kind of like, okay, this Russian guy has a toupee. It was just part of the, you know, women wear wigs. Meg Ryan wore a wig in Joe vs. the Volcano, and so I didn't have a problem with it. It's just like, okay, this character. So it wasn't.
I mean, I didn't think it didn't distract from anything. I think
me as a kid, I didn't even think of it at all, to be honest. No. Like as a 12-year-old, I didn't put two and two together. It looks great. I think that's why I bring it up. I think it looks like hair. I think it looks like his hair. I think it looks like he has hair. So whatever, looks good. He looks cool in this movie, and I think that's a nice choice. I think that you make or break this movie maybe on the Sean Connery performance. So Harrison Ford was probably right, and he has to be the right combination of trustworthy leader, but also mysterious and interesting and a little funny. So he's got to do a lot.
Well, right, and so I mean, the movie does it, and I guess the story does a good job because you know they're navigating through the ridge, and you know the navigator's got it all plotted out. And he's like, you know, we got to make this turn in so many knots at this speed. And, you know, they have Sean Connery's character be like, yeah, we need to go faster. And we're going to turn when I say so. And so it's like that little tension gets built. I mean, but, you know, he's going to be right. But it just makes him that much of a cooler character.
Yeah.
You know?
Those scenes are always like for the movies because like if it was real life, it's that you were like, I'm turning into this thing, and the other captain would be like, that's crazy. You'd say, no, wait, it's because if I turn into it, it's gonna instead of withholding that information until at the end.
Oh right, yeah.
You would justify it while you were making it. Somebody questioned you. It's
exactly.
No. Let's just wait and see how this pans out.
Yeah, I mean, the emotional truth of it is that you believe you're gonna pull through, even though it's scary, which is what is happening the movie of their story, right? Like they are trusting an awful lot in him and this sort of Hail Mary of a thing that they're doing that he says they have a 30% chance of doing or whatever it is. But you know, it's fun to watch. I mean, he's just such a movie star. I think these three movies, like the two I mentioned and this one together, it's just such a nice late career trio of performances. And he almost gets to chew the scenery as like a likable captain in this. Not quite. Like he doesn't. I think it stays a person for the most part. But what do you guys think about him in it?
I'd go on, Greg.
I think he's fine. Now, the thing that kind of because I don't think anybody in this film like bakes a Russian accent. You know, I think everybody's just speaking their own voice in it. So there's like no. I mean, even the Russian counselor at the end when he's talking to he's just speaking plain English. You know, there's no effort to. The word
Armageddon is the same in both languages, and so what they decided to do was have the guy that he straight up murders at the beginning of the movie. Remember that? He is speaking in Russian. It zooms onto his mouth. He says the word Armageddon and then finishes the sentence in English as it zooms out. And so they just decided that was how they were going to handle that. And they're like, here's what we're just going to show you this. It's the beginning of the movie. We know you're going to suspend your disbelief later. It's actually kind of notable.
I thought, that's the first. That scene there has stuck with me my entire life. life, right? That scene was kind of like brilliant at the beginning, but that is, if you told me the most noticeable thing about Hunt for Red October, it'd be that like you said, closing up on the mouth. I didn't realize that you're saying the word Armageddon is the same in both languages.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. So that's a nifty little thing, nifty little trick there. But
yeah, it's smart, and I mean, I guess it's very meta in a movie that is not meta. It's kind of interesting. It feels different than the rest of the movie, you know. It's not like Tarantino who's like constantly talking to you.
Right.
I don't know, but it was appropriate that, you know, so that you at the audience knew that this was a switch that was going on, and we can. Well, guess what? You don't have to read subtitles.
Guess what? This is all pretend, guys.
That's right.
Yeah.
I also want to just quickly shout out, young Courtney B. Vance doing a good role there.
Really showy role, right? Kind of fun, too. I feel like the screenwriter really kind of hit gold. I mean, like, you think about the challenge of writing a submarine movie. Like, this movie is a bunch of guys in rooms and a bunch of guys in smaller rooms. But that his sort of performance and character, and he's really good at what he does, and they use that character to sort of teach you a little bit about the way the sonar works and stuff. So that's kind of fun. I mean, I think it's good writing, and it all comes across kind of fun. But yeah, it's not action.
No.
No. It's fun. Although the part where they get on the little sub and they go over to the Russian sub, and he's on that.
Yeah,
sub,
he probably wouldn't be on there.
Why does he need to be on there?
I mean,
obviously we need him for the following scene. Is why we need him on that sub.
Right.
I don't know why. If you were, hey, let's go invade a Russian sub. We need this guy with us.
I found it very validating that I was confused in this movie by what was going on a little bit towards the end and what was where and everything. And I think the reason is because none of it really matters that much. All of that stuff, like the cook and all that, it's like you don't really have to know. Which is funny. As a 12-year-old, that's the way you experience basically any complex plot. Is like, I'm just going to get the gist of it.
Yeah, right.
But I think that's totally sufficient for this movie.
Right, I think so.
And it's fun. Submarine movies go. I remember liking Crimson Tide quite a bit. I've never seen the Harrison Ford submarine movie that he made
Widowmaker.
Instead. And I've never seen Das Boat either. So, but I do really respond to the Jim Cameron submarine stuff in the Abyss. It's usually very intense and enjoyable.
Yep.
There's also that Bon Jovi submarine movie, isn't there? Is it called like UB71?
Oh yeah. You're right. There is, yeah.
It's made by John Bon Jovi, written and directed by.
Well, he's the only one I can remember being in it.
I think that might be Catherine Bigelow. No, she did the Widowmaker.
She did Widowmaker? Okay.
I think the U571 has McConaughey in it, maybe.
Oh, maybe that's right, yeah.
It does have Matthew McConaughey, and it was directed by Jonathan Mostow, who also did Terminator 3 and Breakdown.
So they gave that guy a lot of work based on that Breakdown movie. I'm not sure he really cashed in those chips, to be honest.
Sure. Well, all right. So, yeah, I think anybody else have anything else to say about Hunt for Red October? Are we ready to rate it?
I would say Jonathan Mostow is no Jim Cameron.
Nope. Okay.
Neither in his Submarines nor his Terminators.
That's right.
And
he's no John McTiernan either.
No, he's no. I think it's a solid 3-star movie. I think it's almost if I was going to calibrate my star scale, it's like a perfect 3-star movie because there's no way in hell it's getting anywhere near a 4 with what's going on here. Like just story wise and whatnot, but it's just so good. It's very good.
Yeah,
it's not great.
Yeah, Greg, how many stars?
I mean, I would have given it like a 3.5.
Sure, you do it.
I think it. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not like a great film, but I mean, it's still a really good film. I mean, it's a really enjoyable film. It's a wonderful introduction to the character. It's
you can watch it with your grandpa
and your grandson.
You can
grandson. And yeah, it
but
holds
not
up.
any women.
It's still an enjoyable watch. Just when I watched it the other day, when I rented it for $3.99.
That's right. Yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah, I'll Venmo you.
Yeah,
That's on
That's
the
okay.
podcast.
We get a charter discount anyway, so it's okay. So it was probably only $3 even.
it was. I'll give it 3 stars. Also, I enjoyed it. It's a good one. Everybody should check it out.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Connery fans, Sam Neill heads, Tim Curry not playing a weird character heads. If you like him from Clue, you'll like him in this because the cook did it in this one.
That's right. I think he is Dr. Frankenstein. No, Frankenfurter. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's the same character.
Oh yeah, this is how he escapes Transylvania.
That's right.
So I do think that this holds up. Transylvania got subsumed in the USSR. He gets a haircut, joins the Navy,
That's
hops aboard this submarine, and defects.
That's right.
It all checks out.
That's right. He didn't actually defect, though.
He's the key to getting everybody off that boat.
That's right. All right. Well, Greg, thanks for being on another episode of My So-Called Podcast. And listeners, thanks for listening to another episode of My So-Called Podcast. I've been Gary Linton.
And I have been Eric Spiegel. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.